Black and White Network, we are back with another video. We're going to be talking about the WOKESTER herself, Jemele Hill, and Joe Rogan. As you guys know, leftists are really going after Joe Rogan. They really are. They're going after Spotify. You got these woke, washed up musicians telling Spotify, hey, if you're going to leave Joe Rogan up, take my music down. They're a bunch of frauds and they're complete phonies. But Jemele Hill, also another phony. And now it seems like Jemele Hill is somewhat making demands to Spotify when it comes to podcasts. And as you guys know, it has been reported that Joe Rogan actually made $200 million on his podcast 3-year deal. And the old news as of a few days ago, it was $100 million. And that's what people was rolling with for the last couple of years. However, check this out, guys, over here on Outkick. Jemele Hill pressures Spotify to pay Black podcaster $100 million. Now, my question is, who is this Black podcaster that should get $100 million? Jemele Hill doesn't even offer you an answer to that. But let's read a little bit of this. Jemele Hill is pressuring Spotify to pay a Black podcaster $100 million. In an interview with the New York Times, Hill challenged Spotify, her exclusive podcast streamer, to prove it's not racist by matching its investment in Rogan with a Black host. Quote, what I would like to see, Hill said in an interview, is for Spotify to hand $100 million to somebody who is Black. You notice she didn't name a person, just somebody, just because of their skin color. That's pretty much it. But Jemele Hill is a race hustler. Now, I could actually change this up, and she would like to see Spotify hand $200 million to somebody that's Black, because that's the real number of Joe Rogan. And Outkick even says it here. So Hill wants Spotify to pay someone $100 million for being Black and a podcaster. That's it. That's the only two qualifications. Now, Jemele Hill, you're on Spotify, by the way. Why don't you demand that Spotify pay you $100 million or $200 million, I should say? Well, for one thing, why is Joe Rogan getting $200 million from Spotify? Because he has the most popular podcast on the planet. That's why. Joe Rogan is getting over 11 million downloads per episode. His podcast is roughly getting like 220 million downloads per month. And guys, nobody else is coming close to that. That's why Joe Rogan is getting that kind of money. Spotify didn't pay him that kind of money because he's white. That's not the case. It was a simple business move, and they're right on the money. All right, Joe Rogan, 200 million. Jemele Hill, why should we actually pay a Black podcaster $200 million? Can you explain why? Jemele Hill would just say, well, we just want to prove that you're not racist and you don't like Black people. Is that's what you're saying, Spotify? I'm just making that up right there, but you guys understand what I'm saying. But here's the thing, man. Nobody else is doing what Joe Rogan's doing. Nobody. Now, I pulled this up here. This is from April of 2020. The 10 highest paid podcasts and podcasters of 2020. Guess who was number one? Newsflash. I'm not even going to make you guys wait. The Joe Rogan Experience. Check this out. It says, raking in a whopping $30 million in revenue, the Joe Rogan Experience has undoubtedly become the most popular podcast around and has even been ranked the number one podcast in the world. This is from 2020. While some find the podcast a bit controversial, the show has reportedly received as many as 190 million downloads per month. That's in 2020. Of course, they have grown then. But check this out. The number 2. I don't know the race of these people here. I don't even know this podcast. It says My Favorite Murder. Karen Gilligraph and Georgia Hartstark. And most of the people on here, well, Dave Ramsey is by himself. Most of these people on here, they have they're popular, but they're not Joe Rogan popular on podcasts. They're just not. But check this out. My favorite murder. It says at least $15 million per year in revenue, half of what Joe Rogan is bringing in. My favorite murder stands as the most popular true crime podcast on the air by adding a comedic twist to the often brutal murders. Kilgriff and Hartstock have cornered the market and created a thriving business. So they're bringing in half of the amount of revenue. Half. The number 2 podcast. Joe Rogan, $30 million on this. $15 million for this podcast here. Dave Ramsey here, $10 million. The number 3 podcast. And guys, the podcast world is not easy whatsoever. It's not easy to break in, guys. I mean, as you guys know, on Black and White Sports, we're roughly getting, I would say, 3.5 million to 4 million views per month on average on YouTube. When it comes to podcasts, that's not even close. Not even close to we don't get that nearly that amount on a podcast. The podcast platform is extremely difficult to break into. I mean, Jemele Hill, who is the name? What is the name of the black person you would like to see get the $200 million deal that Joe Rogan's getting? Because we need to name this, because other than the person being black, that's not much of a qualification, man. It's not a qualification at all to justify $200 million just because you're black, just because you believe that Spotify needs to show they're not racist by doing this. You know what we call this, folks? That's nothing more than socialism. Just everybody gets something for doing nothing. Everybody gets the same equal thing across the board. That's not the way it works. Joe Rogan is getting $200 million because he's the number 1 podcast platform on the planet. He brings in the most money. As I showed you there, the number 2 person doesn't even bring in half of the revenue that Joe Rogan does. That's just my thoughts on this. What do you guys think of this? Black and White Network fans, let us know what you think about all this in the comments. Make sure you subscribe to the channel, and we'll catch you next time.